Welcome back to the Family Pet on News 12 Long Island. Pet owners have been on high alert these days. That's since tainted pet foods have made its way to the shelves of thousands of stores across the country. And here to make sense of the situation is Dr. Diane Levittown from the Center for Specialized Veterinary Care in Westbury. Thank you very much for coming. I certainly do appreciate it. Where did it actually all start? What happened?
Isn't it? It's just crazy how this whole thing happened. And it started as a problem in China. It was first. It's just been all over the board. And I even brought a cheat sheet because there's so much that went on, and I want to be able to tell us exactly like it was. And to make a long story short, there was a tainted product that was made in China that was in a product for cuts and gravy type food that was sent to the U.S. and also we found out to South Africa and to Canada. And those tainted ingredients got into many, many different types of pet food. And they then got distributed to the shelves and affected pets. So it was way back on March 16th when Menu Foods, Menu Foods recalled pet foods. Mm-hmm. And then all the veterinarians, we started to wonder, well, why are they recalling the pet foods? And then we realized when we looked at the list that dogs and cats were suffering from kidney failure. Still, nobody really knew what it was from. There were ideas initially, we thought aminopterin and all these big words came out, but nobody really knew what it was. Then a substance called melamine was detected in some of the foods. But it didn't make sense because melamine doesn't cause kidney failure.
Right. That's so
we just didn't get it. Mm-hmm. So then we knew that melamine was at least a marker. And then more and more foods were being recalled, and a lot of foods were, even if it was just a possibility of a recall, fortunately it turned out to be only 1% to 2% of pet foods, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. If you go to look at the list of how many foods there are, how many foods there actually are. So the good news is lots of foods were not affected. So long story short, it turns out that melamine alone was not the toxin alone. There was another substance that was found, and that wasn't found till April 23rd, I think, or at least identified. It's called cyanuric acid, and it, in combination with melamine, created crystals in the kidneys of these animals, and that's why they got sick.
Now, was this in the wheat gluten, or is the wheat gluten had nothing to do with it?
Isn't it crazy? So it's not just wheat gluten. Uh-huh. They found out not only was it in wheat gluten, it was in rice protein concentrate and in corn gluten in South Africa. What they did, and it's bad what they did. They took a substance and they put it in. They mislabeled it sometimes as wheat flour, so even the people who were inspecting the foods didn't know what to look for. Mm-hmm. So wheat flour was actually corn gluten or wheat gluten, or rice protein concentrate was labeled as wheat flour, and that had the toxin in it.
Is anything safe?
You know what? A lot of things are safe now, and I think pet foods right now are going to be safer than human food. I think if we want to, in the next 6 months, to start eating pet food, we'll probably be safer. It's true, it's crazy, but it's true because all these pet food companies have really taken it upon themselves to make sure that something like this never happens. The pet food industry is very well regulated. The foods are, everything that comes through is inspected carefully, but no one would ever even think to look for a substance that doesn't belong there, a plastic type substance. And what happened was in the Chinese factories, they wanted to use less protein in the food, so they used a substance that measures as if it's protein. Mm-hmm. It was corruption, sadly.
Wow.
And so
what's on the shelf now, though, is that safe?
What's on the shelf now we truly believe to be safe. And again, in the next several months, it's going to be safer than ever. So that's the really good news for the pet food industry and for us as pet owners and veterinarians.
Most of the folks that I had coming into my office say, I just don't want to feed my animal pet foods. What do I feed them?
You can't blame them for feeling that way. Right. I mean, I have a hard time sometimes recommending pet food today because we don't know. But the more we learn about it, the more we realize that it is really going to be very safe to feed pet foods. But if you do want to feed your pet a homemade diet, you need to make sure that you're using all the really good ingredients. Make sure that you check with your veterinarian to make sure that your diet is balanced and that you don't want to have a catch-22 and use a homemade diet that wasn't everything it needs to be for your pet's health.
As a veterinarian, what are you telling your clients to look for in terms of symptoms of this disease?
Well, fortunately, we have seen a major decline in symptoms. But even as of May 15th, another product was recalled. So you're right, we do need to look for them. And in this case, the symptoms were of kidney disease, drinking excessively suddenly. 1 to 12 hours after eating, they would become thirsty, they may vomit, they may not want to eat their food like normally. So The other thing is we have to be careful because, of course, as you know, those symptoms could be symptoms of so many things. But certainly a simple blood test could really help us, and of course the history of their pet food.
If we do the blood test, check the urine, we see the animal has the symptoms, is it curable? Can we fix it?
Fortunately, we've had a lot of success in treating them. Some animals who consume large amounts were not able to be saved. It has affected many thousands of animals have been affected, but the good news is many animals have recovered. And this substance, the crystal that forms, is soluble, so it can dissolve with aggressive therapy, but not in everybody.
What about the liability of the dog food company?
Yeah, they're in trouble, right? They tried to do their very best. It's going to be a lot of litigation. It's going to create a lot of interesting issues about the value of pets in society today, and I think it's going to be very interesting. I think following it will be really important.
So looking at the label of the food really doesn't tell us very much because some of this stuff could be hidden away.
You know what? We didn't know that the foods were mislabeled when they got to the States. But I think, again, there have been a lot of private regulatory agencies that have been involved with these pet food companies because they know now that that's the only place they can really trust, and that's why pet foods are going to be even safer today, I think, than human food.
Well, Diana, thank you very much for coming in.
My
and
pleasure.
Kind of putting some light on this information for us. Up next, get to know the Greyhound breed and find out how you can make one a part of your family. Family Pet on News 12 Long Island. We'll be right back.